Hey guys, welcome back to Games of War. I promise this is the last quick little video before the Xbox Buyer's Guide is unleashed. And this is not a video I planned on making. However, due to a lot of people messaging me saying, oh, I'd love to see a response from you on this, I decided to make it. If you guys want to see it, I do what people ask of me because you support me, I support you. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, as long as it's not hairy as fuck. So here we go. 3 rare games in your collection. And this is kind of a video response to Metal Jesus and Friends. They all showed off their 3 rarest games. And I've done something similar to this in the past, a few years back. And that's why I'm going to not talk about 3 rarest games in terms of just monetary value. Because I could talk about Koi Flying Squadron all day long. I've already mentioned that in the past video, highlighted that. I talked about Saturn Bomberman, I highlighted that. I've talked to death about all of the Working Designs games on the Sega CD and all of the Working Designs games on the Sega Saturn. So I want to pick a fresh batch of rare games, and these also still qualify because they're also some of the more expensive games in my collection. So without any more rambling, let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have Super Turrican 2, and this is an insanely expensive game. This is a nice boxed, complete, and mint copy here. I've always been such a big fan of the Turrican games. I think Mega Turrican on the Genesis might be my favorite, but this one on the Super Nintendo has a lot of the use of the Mode 7 effects. Very bright and crisp visuals. I'm just a big fan of the old classic run and gun style games, and this one is got the challenge, it's got the graphical diversity that wasn't really possible in Genesis back at the time, a lot of cool weapons and power-ups. This is side-scrolling run and gun action done right. Sadly, it's extremely expensive for an original copy. I do see a lot of repros on eBay and other sites. You can get it for a good price if you actually just want to play the game, which is nothing wrong with that, but this is an amazing run and gun series. Mega Turrican being my favorite, but Super Turrican 2 is a little bit different than the original games. It's a little bit more, not as open, huge levels, more of a straight side scroller. Some diversions in there like vehicle riding and such, but a solid run and gunner. Next up, we have Ninja 5-0 on the Game Boy Advance, and this was a difficult game to find when it first released, let alone all these years later. And it's a true shame because this is one of the best action side scrollers on the Game Boy Advance. This is a nice mint and complete copy here. Kind of take the best elements from Shinobi and Bionic Commando and put them into one game, and you've got Ninja 5-0. You're going to be saving hostages, you're going to be killing bad guys, you're going to be throwing shurikens, you got a ninja sword to slash with, and the best part about it, my favorite personal part, is the grappling hook. A really cool physics-based grappling hook where you shoot it up into the environment, you can kind of swing back and forth, gain momentum, and leap onto taller ledges and take down enemies. Just an amazing game, a great power-up system, some cool ninja magic, very challenging bosses, great levels that are designed around this grappling hook mechanic. This is one of the finest side-scrollers available for the Game Boy Advance. It's just a shame it was so hard to find when it first came out. I snagged up a copy only because I had been following it up until its release, and I called the day of and managed to snag one, and they got like 1 copy. So I'm really happy to have this. Next up, we've got an old classic. A lot of people have talked about this, Musha on the Genesis. This game is getting pretty expensive as well on a system that is home to so many amazing shoot-'em-ups. I often struggle to find out, why this one? Why is this one just climbing so expensively? I mean, don't get me wrong, it is an amazing shoot-'em-up, but there are some completely insane shoot-'em-ups on the Genesis. I'd like to do a video on that sometime in the future. I've done one in the past, but I've got a lot more just to cover all the amazing shoot-'em-ups, all the renovation shoot-'em-ups, Wings of War, Hellfire, Gary's, so many great shoot-'em-ups, and Musha is no exception. And I actually prefer the sequel to Musha. On the Sega CD, it's called Robo-Alest, and it's a sequel, and I actually think that's the better made game. I absolutely love the sequel, but no denying the brilliance of Musha, and it is definitely an expensive game. If you can get this for your collection, definitely play it, love it, and hang on to it. Now, what would a Games of War video be without some honorable mentions? Now, I know that that's the top 3, and I'm not bragging or showing off. I just gotta say, out of all the rare games that I have, these 2 mean the most to me personally. Panzer Dragoon was a game that completely justified me owning the Saturn. Now, back, you gotta remember, when the Saturn first came out, people were talking shit. They were saying it couldn't do 3D properly. The Virtua Fighter port was initially horrible, and a lot of the games had some serious graphical issues, and it was widely regarded right off the bat that the Saturn was inferior to the PlayStation. Panzer Dragoon came out as a launch title, and that's the one game that I could shove in my friend's face and say, you know what, look at this shit, man. How is this inferior? It was beautiful, the music was great. Granted, it was on rails, but it was a spectacular game. The second one came out and just blew me away even more. being able to land on the ground and run and shoot and then take off and leap off cliffs and fly through the air. Just a stellar series. I absolutely love the Panzer Dragoon series. I love the Panzer Dragoon Orta on the Xbox. That's a fantastic game. One that I will be highlighting very soon. So Panzer Dragoon Saga, I remember this coming out, and you had to pre-order it. It was a big deal at the time because the last 5 of the Saturn games were going to be in very small quantities. So I pre-ordered every single one of those 5 right away, and I still remember the day I picked this up from the mall and just racing home and could not wait to pop this in. I remember I stayed at my girlfriend's house that weekend, and she was wanting to watch movies and get popcorn and Snuddle and all that, and I kind of... I'm kind of a prick. I spent the entire weekend playing this game and doing my best to, oh honey, look at this, you know, this is this and this is the, and she didn't give a shit, but I'll never forget that weekend. I think I damn near finished this game, a 4-disc monster. This is a standard setting RPG on the Saturn. This really did make me bittersweet, almost sad, because I knew the Saturn was capable of so much more, and games like this just proved it. An amazing continuation of the series, an amazing RPG, and one that is still remembered fondly to this day. And I gotta mention Snatcher. This game, very similar to Panzer Dragoon Saga. All of my friends all had Super Nintendos, and they still had Genesis, and I was here pimping the Sega CD trying to convince everyone how badass it was. And they just weren't buying the full motion video games. They just weren't buying the Genesis ports with enhanced music and cinemas. But when they saw Snatcher, they kind of understood, and it's kind of sad it came out late in the life cycle. There was no hype for this. Nobody even knew what it was. It's become a cult classic later on, but a futuristic Blade Runner-esque, almost graphic novel point-and-click game that is very adult-themed, very controversial, if I may, for the time. Blood, murder, betrayal, a deep storyline. I was hooked to this. I beat this game once a year, and I just... every year, it doesn't get old. I absolutely love the atmosphere. This game is ahead of its time, and proof that the Sega CD could have offered something very different for the time. When the Sega CD came out, it was very early CD technology, but it could have offered something had they gone a different route than full motion video. And I love full motion video. I think it's the cheesiest, most funny shit in the world, but definitely not the right way to go early on. They should have focused on monster, beefed up 2D side scrollers with beautiful cinemas and music, or games like this, an actual storyline, actual playability, and something to sink your teeth into. Snatcher is definitely one of the most valuable games in my collection, and I love it dearly. Before I leave you, mentioning Snatcher, I can't end the video without mentioning the space adventure. This is very similar to Snatcher, maybe even more a little bit controversial. There's like showered scenes in this and kind of nude scenes, but not fully nude, but definitely pushing the envelope for back in the day. If you're into the Snatcher kind of game, this is a very underlooked and underrated game. It got shit reviews back in the day, I remember it, and I think it has got a lot to offer. I love the storyline, the characters are awesome, a lot of great writing and just over-the-top badassery. And this game doesn't get mentioned enough. Snatcher steals all the thunder, but definitely the space adventure is starting to come into its own, and people are starting to take notice because I've seen the price just start to raise up as well. So there you have it, guys. A few of the valuable games in my collection, and I could go on for hours because once I start talking about this shit, I just can't stop. And it's, like I said, I'm not bragging. I get so passionate about this shit. I love my collection. I love my game room, and if you give me a chance to talk about it, and I won't shut up. So hope you guys have enjoyed this. I didn't plan on making this video, but you know what? You guys asked for it, and if you ask of me what I ask of you, there's no way I couldn't give you back what you ask. You know, I appreciate every one of you, and I take each one of your comments seriously. And if 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5, hell, 1 person really wants to see a video and they're passionate about it and they're asking of me, how can I say no to that? I love you all. Games of War is nothing without you.